وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الله به الغمة وجاهد في سبيل ربه حتى أتاه اليقين. فاللهم اجزه عنا وعن والدينا وعن الإسلام والمسلمين خير ما جازيت به نبيا عن قومه ورسولا عن أمته. اللهم أحينا على سنته وتوفنا على ملته وأوردنا حوضه واسقنا من يده الشريفة شربة هنيئة لا نظمأ بعدها أبدا. اللهم اجمع بيننا وبينه كما أمنا به ولم نره ولا تفرق بيننا وبينه حتى تدخلنا مدخله. ثم أما بعد, my dear respected brothers and sisters, there is an environment of fear, concern about the future of this country and the future of the entire world. There is concern and fear of economic collapse and fear of civil wars and fear of Third World War. And every day the news bring more news that increase the anxiety of almost all Americans and people around the world. And what's happening is not just one person who's narcissist trying to satisfy his own ego. It is much more than this. I just want to share with you some ideas that I found very interesting at explaining what's happening in America by Professor Jason Stanley, who wrote a wonderful book way before this. And the name of the book is How Fascism Works. How Fascism Works. He's a professor at Yale philosophy department who decided actually to move to Canada. And when he was interviewed, why is that? He said, because I have 2 children and I don't want them to grow up in this kind of toxic environment. I want them to be free and to speak freely. And I just want to share with you the summary of his book, his ideas that talks about what's happening in America to understand it from a broader perspective. He talked about fascism as a social and political movement that grows in a particular country even before they come to power. Hitler actually led this movement and then he was elected president. Mussolini, same thing. They started this movement, and when this movement came to power, they became fascists. So he talked about the 10 tactics fascism actually use. And this is true to almost every fascist dictatorship in the modern time. He talked about the mythic past. They always talk about how great we were, how strong and powerful we used to be, right? How much we used to control everything. Now this is gone. We're losing all of this, right? We were great because we had a strong military, nuclear weapons, and a particular social group actually takes the credit for that. That's the white Americans. We were great because the military built by, or the systems built by the white people. And now this is being taken away from us. We used to be great in the past, but we need to make ourselves great again. We're not great anymore, right? And they always play victim, right? Although America, everybody knows that the strongest and wealthiest country in the world, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and 50 years ago, it was, but they always repeat this notion that we used to be great, but now we are not. And because of the so many other groups that came, and immigrants in particular, are very much anti-immigrants. And the white race is the only race that can recreate the greatness of our country again. So the mythic past is one of the tactics that fascists use, that we used to be good, but now we are not. Why? Because of these reasons, social change and so on. And of course, for this, they use propaganda, and they don't want anyone to present a counter narrative. Their narrative is the only narrative that is true. Right? So the use of propaganda and media outlets change curriculums and so on and so forth to pass these notions. And he also said that the third one of these tactics is anti-intellectual. They are very much anti-intellectual because intellectuals are the ones who can tell them that you are wrong. You know, after every presidential debate, there is something called fact check, right? And most of the time, these fascists, they just throw false information and they accuse others of being false. I was the greatest president in the history of the United States. I brought down the deficit. Experts go and look. No, he did not lower the deficit. You know, it actually gets worse. But when he says, I am the only one who lowered the deficit, who's going to check after? Using the propaganda, it becomes in the mind of many people like fact, right? So that's why they hate intellectuals. That's why they target universities. Because universities, especially in America, America is by far the greatest higher education in the world. All of the top 10 universities, most of them are from the United States. And they target now universities. Many professors don't feel free to speak, and they can be blacklisted. It's interesting that they came up with an executive order that reforms universities by appointing some people to observe what's going on in the university, especially in departments like Middle Eastern studies. Middle Eastern studies must be controlled, and we have to watch, and students actually can write reports about their professors. This is how anti-intellectual these fascists are. Universities were made to create ideas and counter ideas. People feel free to present ideas and others present other ideas. There is a debate, a discussion, and students have their freedom to express their opinion in this critical age. You know, they come to learn, but also they're part of the society. They can protest, they can voice their opinion. That is the place of freedom, intellectual freedom. And intellectuals can tell them that you are wrong, what you're saying is wrong. You are making decisions based on a false premises. So they are anti-intellectual because they spread lies, they lie to people, and intellectuals became their enemies because they can fact check them and they can prove them wrong. It's very interesting, unthinkable. I've never thought that professors, tenure professors, are afraid to speak their mind. And now we see PhD students being abducted simply because they wrote an article in a student magazine about the Middle East. Writing an article now became dangerous. Every like and share or short comment on something on the social media can actually be taken as a good reason for you to be detained or even departed. That's typical fascists. You cannot actually oppose, otherwise you are the enemy of the country. You are the enemy. And the students who come here with a student visa, they cannot speak anything that we don't like. They cannot be anti-president or anti-government. But this is like the fundamental principles in liberalism and in democracy. People have the freedom to criticize their presidents, to sue the government. But now we are seeing this is eroding now. Unreality is another tactic, unreality. They just talk about things that never exist. There's no reality, there's no basis for this information that they keep spreading, right? And most of the time it is fear-mongering. They want people to be scared of something, or scared now of losing our greatness, or afraid of losing our country, or afraid of losing, and we are the victims, and all these countries are ripping us off and taking advantage of us. If there's only one country that cannot complain that they're the victims, it will be the United States. The strongest and wealthiest, by far, the strongest and wealthiest country complains that we were the victims of being taken advantage of. And this is kind of difficult to understand, but for many, yeah, this is truth. And there's always hierarchy. The hierarchy comes up to one person. And that is a big shift, as many actually observers, they think there's a huge shift now because democracy is one of the enemies of fascists. It is the enemy. Democracy itself is the problem. Another thinker and blogger and activist, Yervin, last name is Yervin, forgot his first name, actually said very much that democracy is bad because democracy is the rule of the masses. People don't know things. We need to have a monarchy. Monarchy means a king who rules, right? And he has his own team, very loyal to him, and he makes decisions, everybody follows. Democracy is destructive. It's not taking us forward, and that's why they're staying away from Europe, the best allies. Now, Europe is bad because Europe went far left, and they're giving so much freedom and welcoming immigrants and so on and so forth. Who could have imagined that America will take Canada and Europe as enemies? That was unthinkable. But this is where it's coming from. It's not just one person woke up in the morning and decided. No, it is. In the second term, they were very much ready to execute very quickly and very sharply. This is why it is. Do it as quickly as possible. Why? Because 4 years are not enough to change America, change all these institutions. And now they're talking about the third term. And that's not a joke. That in their mind, in 4 years, things will change well enough in order to be able to change constitution, or even without changing constitution. This is what it is. And the majority are happy with this. So talking about the third term comes, I think, from the fact that they think 4 years might not be good enough to change everything, because they know full well if there's an election tomorrow, they will lose. Everybody knows that. So now we have a president who is staying in his office for 4 years, and we need to get things done quickly. Because democracy is bad and evil, then we need to target the democratic institutions. What are the democratic? Congress is the enemy. Courts are the enemy. Judge has no right to stop the plan of the president, right? And now we can see that how much they target courts and judges, and they also target media. All other media is like false news and are bad. That's very typical fascist tactics. Law and order for him, says law and order for him means that following the president, the one person who is running this, hierarchy of government that he chose based on loyalty. That's very clear, very obvious now. Hiring is based on loyalty, not based on qualifications. People are dumb, became, ministers because they are loyal. Just repeat what he says. And now there's a huge change, now replacement in the top leaders of the American army. This comes for a reason. And that's very dangerous, because if the army became a political entity, then so what? Not following the orders of the court would become the norm. That's normal. The court says something, I'm not going to do it. Do something else. So law and order means to listen and obey to the regime, the government or the president. And also there is also fear of change of values. Your children and grandchildren are in great danger. If the status quo remains, then your children and grandchildren, and of course everybody cares about his children and grandchildren, right? And they portray things as if that your children and grandchildren will be in big danger. Finally, they talk about, he actually quoted this in German, something was written on Auschwitz concentration camp for the Jews in Germany or in Poland, that says, work and you live. The only way for you to live, you have to work. Everybody has to work. This is not to say that non-fascists do not value work, but they value only those who are able to work. Forget about handicapped and forget about disabled people, elderly people, and so on and so forth. Actually, the Nazi German came up with a law, I think it's called a T4, something like this, that get rid of all these handicapped people, people cannot work, just kill them, poison them, because they are a burden on the country. We need everyone to work, not just, we don't want like have open mouths that cannot produce. We just have to feed them and spend them, just get rid of them. We need people to work. Everybody, men, women, even children, everyone has to work because we want to be great again, we want to be powerful again. And there's no room for social aids or orphans or poor children or lunch, free lunch at school. All these things, just forget about it. We need everyone to work. There's no sympathy, there's no mercy. If you cannot work, you die. And this is basically what's going on, that all these programs I've seen being cut to help those who are in need, it came as part of this plan to make America great again. Everyone has to work hard. Nobody should ever apply for food stamp or social aids or Medicaid or eventual Medicare. And all these things must come to an end. There's only one country in the entire world, that consider health insurance as a privilege, not as a basic right. Only in America. No other place, no other country. You'll find a country that consider healthcare the job of the person himself. You have to go and buy healthcare yourself. If you don't have healthcare, many people, like 60,000 people die every year in America as a result of not taking the medication or undergoing operation that they should undergo. Because they have no health insurance, they cannot afford this medication. In the wealthiest country in the world, many people die because they cannot get the right treatment. Why? Because they cannot afford health insurance. So all these, government care, Medicaid and Medicare and food stamp and all these, are here in Michigan, many students in elementary school, they will go hungry because cutting off all these aids that provide them with lunch. They eat breakfast at home, they come to school, eat lunch, perhaps God knows whether they eat another meal in the evening or not, but this free meal for many students coming from low-income families, that's the only free meal they can get. Cutting off all these things is a crime, but from fascist perspective, it's not a crime, that's the norm. Let people work. So work and you live. Everyone has to work and work hard in order to make our country great again. And don't ask where does this money go, support what, that's our business. So fascism is an ideology, an ideological structure. It's not one person making decisions every day. It's meant to be this way because this is how you can identify a fascist regime. Attacking immigrants very badly, stopping immigrants from coming. No difference between friends and foes. We are the victims. We have to be great again as we used to be great in the past. And again, this terminology has no particular, what do you mean by making us great again? I mean, what did we lose to try to restore? So we just need to, I'm not saying this to cast fear in your heart, but we just need to understand what's going on and how it's going. So shifting America from a democratic, I'm not, by the way, saying that democratic system is perfect. There's also a lot of flaws there and injustice. But switching from democracy to fascism, this is what we see every single day. Every single day in the news, you see these executive orders are not just coming out of nowhere. I've been well prepared. I don't know if you heard about 2025 plan. This was a plan in the last 4 years, has been crystallized and now has been executed in a fast pace. It has to be done quickly. It has to be done quickly, casting fear in the heart of people so nobody would dare to criticize or protest otherwise. These people that have been arrested, like Mahmoud Khalil and this Turkish PhD student had been abducted from the street, they are made an example. They want to show everybody, see, you will lose your visa, you will lose your scholarship, you will lose your career, your future, if you dare to write something on the social media or protest for something that we don't approve. Will this succeed? Only God knows. It depends on the amount of resistance coming from the American people, or I'm sorry to say that half of the American people. And for other half, they are happy with what's happening and they think this is what we need. We need a strong person, right, to protect our identity, to protect our future, right, restore our might again. We need someone who's tough and who is able to challenge everyone. That's the only way out. Will this change? Allahu A'lam. When and where and how. But again, it is okay to be concerned, to be scared, but it's not okay to submit to this fear. We have to do what we have to do. When the right time comes, protest, voice your opinion. Don't be scared because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who provides for us. Our life and our rizq in Allah's hand. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy on us, because the coming days might be a little tough on all minorities, including religious minorities. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us wisdom so that we can enjoy good and forbid evil and do what is right. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our families. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. استغفر الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم، وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. عباد الله اتقوا الله وأطيعوه، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر. الله يعلم ما تصنعون. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نسألك رزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم اصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا، واصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا، واصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا. اللهم اجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير، واجعل الموت راحة. اللهم لا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين ولا إلى أحد من الناس يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء، ونسألك الغنى عن الناس يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين. اللهم انصر دينك وكتابك وعبادك الصالحين. اللهم انصر أهل غزة يا رب العالمين. اللهم احفظهم بحفظك واكلهم بعنايتك ورعايتك يا رب العالمين وأرحم الراحمين. فستذكرون ما أقول لكم وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. قم الصلاة.